Do you need math to learn machine learning? Yes or no? Well, unfortunately, the answer is pretty much both of those things. And to speak to the no part at first, well, to get up and running with machine learning, you really don't need to learn math. Like, why would you need calculus when you can just import a linear regression and then fit that model? Like, you set up your data, you train the model, it's good to go. Even with something extremely powerful like a mix, like an ensemble of gradient boosting models and random forest and other models you may or may not have heard of, it doesn't matter. To do that with AutoML, automated machine learning, it is no harder than it is to do that for a linear regression. You just import it and run, and you'll get a very good model. And there's even some like no-code solutions where for similar things, you can just use like a GUI tool and get it set up and running. So why the heck would anyone say yes, you need mathematics for machine learning when even with just very little coding knowledge, you can go copy some code and apply that to your data set? Not even just copy someone else's complete program, apply this to your new problem. You totally can, that like no strings attached. But you're gonna run into some pretty big challenges at some point if you don't learn the math, because sure, to implement all this stuff, you don't necessarily need it. But well, firstly, when you go to interview, they're probably gonna require that you know this stuff. They'll ask you questions like, explain the bias variance trade-off. What is this graph showing? Any sort of simple mathematics stuff, they're probably going to ask you that. And if they do, then you're just immediately discarded because they will find someone that can answer those questions, if they want them to. And I think they're reasonable questions. Sure, there's definitely like some unreasonable questions, like some really bogus probability stuff that's very complicated that most people really don't need to know. That's mostly just separating the really strong from the pretty strong, and that's sort of fair. But I'm mostly referring to the majority of companies will still ask like basic to intermediate mathematics level questions around this stuff. And it's not only just to get past the interview. For your own, sanity, whatever you're doing, whether it's trying to learn more, whether you're trying to solve a particular problem, starting your company, whatever it may be in machine learning, well, sure, you can get decently far with automated machine learning and copying some like code for neural networks. But if you really are trying to make an impact, whether it's already in a company, on your own, whatever, it's going to be very difficult to do that without being able to diagnose mathematically a bit what's going on. And at least understand the literature, because it's extremely common, especially in companies and in machine learning. It's kind of like a research, like exploratory thing. Like no one really knows if this is going to be the right approach. No one knows if this is, even worth tackling at all. Someone has an idea and, you just start going down this road. And, your company or you are going to be very disappointed if, you have these techniques and you copy some code and it doesn't work or it doesn't do exactly what you expected. How are you going to diagnose that? Well, unless you're really strong, or at least decently strong with the mathematics and the literature, then you're probably not going to get anywhere. And it's actually pretty common to even just jump into companies and, you'll need actually like to start reading papers. Like for one of my jobs, I needed to reread all of the object detection papers. And so like I spent a day doing that. And you're not going to be able to do that if you firstly can't read math, like read as in like understand, like summation symbols, multiplication, and just, how to read like proofs and stuff like that. So you're going to need those basic math skills. And when you're on the job and actually coding, diagnosing these problems is going to be really difficult if you don't understand what that high level code is implementing. You don't necessarily need to know all of the code that they wrote, like for all of the code that TensorFlow wrote to implement their models, but you should understand, if you're doing some high level code in general, the problem and the ways that they're trying to accomplish that, so that you can attack the problem from multiple angles if you have to. So I hope that helped answer the question. Like, yeah, no, technically you don't actually have to learn math for machine learning, but you're probably going to hit those roadblocks.